Hello and welcome to Talking Points. I'm Kay Erickson with the League of Women Voters of South Tonka, and today we're going to talk about water. Across the state, we're facing some significant threats to our water resources. We have lakes in southern Minnesota that aren't safe to swim in. 2/3 of the wells in central Minnesota have excess levels of nitrates. The tons of salt we put on our roads ends up in our lakes and rivers and affects water quality, not to mention aquatic invasive species and pressures on water from mining and development. My two guests today are concerned about our water and want all of us to understand the challenges that we're facing and what we can do to make sure we have clean and abundant water into the future. I'm honored to have Minnesota Governor Mark Dayton today as my first guest. He's issued a call to action for Minnesotans declaring 2016 as his year of water action. He's going to talk about why preserving and protecting water is a major focus for his administration. We were invited into the governor's residence to film the following segment of the program. Governor Dayton, thank you for being here today to talk to me about your Year of Water Action. You began this year in 2016 with the Water Summit, and then you launched your Year of Water Action in August. What was it that made you decide that you needed to focus so much attention on water? Why 2016? Why now?
Well, a year and a half ago, spring of 2015, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency put out a report, which was shocking to me, and it showed that significant parts of southwestern Minnesota, the water there is undrinkable, it's unusable, it doesn't support aquatic life and the like. And so I said, away, that this is something I wasn't fully aware of, and I've realized a lot of Minnesotans aren't aware. We're the land of sky blue waters and 10,000 lakes and everything else, so we assume it's an unlimited and naturally clean resource, and of course it isn't, and we need to be much more intentional about our use of water, how we treat our water, how we protect water from contamination. And so, it's one thing has led to another. The summit had over 800 people. We could have had twice that many if we'd had the capacity. So there's a great deal of interest, but we just really need to build this ethic all over the state.
Now, what did you hope to accomplish at the summit? What was the outcome? What did you learn? What did the participants learn?
Well, I think first and foremost wanted to focus public attention on water. We don't have the resources to put the advertisements on television or whatever else umpteen times, so we really depend on events and other opportunities like this to let people know about the importance of their attention to water quality, and that that's a role that each of us can play, and there's a responsibility that each of us has. So that was the first step, and also then to bring together people who were from farmers and small cities and larger cities and watershed district. A whole gamut of people from all different perspectives. And there are a lot of people in Minnesota who are concerned about water and have been working very hard for years, in fact, to improve water quality. And we have, of course, the Legacy Amendment. Minnesotans showed overwhelmingly they want clean water, but some of the things that we're doing as a society are really overwhelming the resources we have to do the remediation. We've got to do a better job of preventing the contamination to begin with.
You launched your Year of Water Action on Itasca State Park. Why did you pick Itasca?
Well, of course, Lake Itasca is the headwaters of the Mississippi, so you can walk across it.
Yep.
In low dry season, you can walk across it in 2 steps, which I was able to do a few years ago. Now it's a little wider this last year, but it's just the beginning of the headwaters, and by the time the river gets to the Iowa border, it's got better quality than it was 20 years ago. So we've made some important progress. But by the time it gets down to the New Orleans, there's a dead zone about 120 miles in the Gulf of Mexico, where all that contamination has made the accumulated water there unfit for for wildlife and for fish. So it reminds us, it starts clean and pure. It's our responsibility to keep it that way as it's making its progress.
When I looked at the website, it looks like you've got a theme for every single month in this Year of Water Action. How are you promoting it? Are you visiting with city halls or citizens or different groups? Are you all over the state, or in just certain areas?
Well, we're doing the best we can, again, without the resources to publicize things and with all the media attention and everything, it's easy to get lost in all the chatter. But going to schools and, I have our various commissioners, agency heads going out various ways. I'm traveling around the state. I've been meeting with not only areas where there are problems, but also places like up in Kitson County, way up in the northwestern corner, where they've been for a good dozen years involved with cleaning up the water that flows into their one major lake there. So I'm wanting to highlight those that are doing it well. And we're going to have another version of a summit in January and keep bringing public attention to that. And at the state fair, we had kids take a pledge and get themselves a tattoo on their...
Oh, they had a tattoo too?
It did wash off. Well, it took me a while to get mine off, but parents will be relieved that it's not a permanent, but it's a way of, again, just whatever we can do to make people aware. We can have laws, we can have regulations, but ultimately this has to be an ethic. It has to be people thinking, what can I do, home, business, wherever, to improve water quality, and how can I keep an eye of where it's failing elsewhere, neighbors or the local community. We all have this responsibility. If we don't instill that ethic, frankly, we're not going to be able to spend enough resources or pass enough laws to make up for the damage that's being done.
Yeah, it seems like we're always able to, rise to the occasion when we have a crisis, but it's really hard to create that sustained effort. I looked at the pledge.
Yeah.
And also, you have some really practical things people can do, from what kids can do, including turning off the faucet and carrying a water bottle that they fill themselves, and building a rain garden, to businesses, to communities. Communities can get involved and go green, pick up after pets, and encourage those kinds of things. You've got ideas for farmers and even outdoor enthusiasts where they can volunteer to monitor lakes and streams and to let plants grow along shorelines, visit parks and trails, and some of those things. So it seems to me those are very practical things that everybody can do.
Everyone has a role and everyone has a responsibility.
Yeah. It seems to me that your plan is also about other kinds of action. You were quoted as saying, nothing will happen in rural or urban Minnesota unless and until all Minnesotans insist on it. So beyond taking the pledge, what else would you like for Minnesotans to do? Because to me, you want everybody to change the way they're thinking about water and how they're using water, but also it implies action and actually doing something. So what would you like for people to continue to do?
I want people to, first of all, find out for themselves the quality of the water that's coming into their home, if it's a well. The Department of Agriculture has done some sampling of wells in some of the suburban counties here, Washington and Dakota, and the water contamination in private wells is very alarming, nitrate concentration. Yes. So it's not just greater Minnesota, it's everywhere. So people should first of all find out for themselves, is our water safe? Where does it come from? Do we have a private well? In which case get that tested. If it's coming from the city or county or whatever source, what are they doing to assure the water quality? And that would be a starting point. And then, as I say, get a sense of what kind of we do to conserve the use of water, and also what, if anything, are we doing that's adding to the contamination. So it's, we've got cities that have drainage where water just runs off, rather than having people can plant a garden and absorb some of the water rather than letting it just run off. You get into agriculture areas, and you've got a reverse situation where the tiling soaks the water and brings the fertilizer or other animal manure or whatever into the groundwater, and so you've got small towns out in greater Minnesota where the water coming into their community is undrinkable, unusable, and they're having to install some expensive wastewater treatment programs to both dispose the water after it goes out, but also just clean the water up so they can use it.
Are there specific programs or laws you're proposing at the state level? Are those kinds of things going to come out of the next water summit, or have they come out of the last water summit?
Well, we're in the process of developing that. Some of these issues are controversial. I proposed establishing buffers 2 sessions ago, and I'm called the buffer bully by some. But we needed to have that protection for water that's coming from public ditches and rivers, streams alike. People say, well, it's my land, and I say, well, it's your land, but it's all of our water, because it flows from one place to the next. And that was very controversial, and so we took that, and that was a stick. So I last year wanted to provide a carrot, which was the financial assistance for the smaller communities that need these water treatment facilities and can't afford them. That was caught up in a bonding bill that didn't pass, but I'll come back to that next January. So, but there, some other things we're going to need to ask, especially local communities, to do to take control of, take charge of their water quality and the water that's surrounding them, that's coming into their communities. And if they don't do that, that adds the cost for citizens. And of course, the cost of cleaning this up afterward is just so much more expensive than preventing it from happening to begin with.
Is there a final message you'd like to leave people with?
Again, water quality is we all have a role and we all have a responsibility. And we're stewards of what has been given to us by our parents, grandparents, and we're also the stewards of what's we're passing on to our children, grandchildren. So this is really it's a sacred trust. And water is precious and priceless, and if we lose it, we'll find, as some other parts of our country have, just how incredibly precious it is. So we still have the chance now to take action in Minnesota to preserve most of our water. It's going to take some remediation. Others, it's going to take a while. But we can save what we have and pass it on, use it for our own benefit, but also pass it on to next generations.
Well, thank you so much for doing this today.
Very good, thank you.
After the break, I'll be talking with Gretchen Sable, chair of the Upper Mississippi River Region Interleague Organization. She'll be talking about the issues facing the watershed area of the Upper Mississippi River.
LMCC HD is here. Here's how you can watch our Government Channel 8 in high definition. If you have a cable-ready TV, you can watch us on Mediacom Channel 8.1. And if you have a set-top box, you can watch us on Mediacom Channel 808. Your community TV, now in HD.
Hi, Gretchen. Welcome to Talking Points. Our guest today is Gretchen Sable. She's got a wealth of experience in water issues. She's worked for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency in Cincinnati until 1978 when she moved to Minnesota. Then for 36 years, she worked in various water-related programs with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, the Minnesota State Planning Agency, and the Minnesota Environmental Quality Board. She retired in 2014 and now serves as chair of the Andover Open Space Commission and the Anoka County Water Resources Task Force. So thank you for being here today. So what is, this mouthful of a word, the Upper Mississippi River Region Interleague Organization?
Yeah, thank you, Kay, and I appreciate being here. The League of Women Voters is a group of women who work on, well, women and men, who work on voting issues, but we also work on other issues. And we're organized into local leagues, each local league serving a specific area. I'm, for example, with the Andover, Anoka, Blaine, Coon Rapids League. And so the interleague organization is a group of leagues together that serve a specific purpose, a specific single purpose. In this case, it is the health and the value of the Upper Mississippi River. Those of you that know, the Mississippi River goes through the Twin Cities. It starts at Lake Itasca. So Minnesota actually covers a third of the Mississippi's distance. And then the Upper Mississippi is the part of the Mississippi above St. Louis. So we serve 4-state region. We don't, Missouri chose not to participate, but it's Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, and we have 60 leagues, local leagues within that watershed that are working on this issue, about 4,000 members. And I'm chair of this organization. We're a brand new organization, just entering our second year. And what we're trying to do is to get our feet under us to work on water issues. Water issues are critical to all of us. I mean, climate change and water are the two things that are going to change the world. You know, you can talk about politics all you want, but when we're talking about changing the world, we're talking about changing the earth with this. So these are big deal things. And you know, we have more than 30 million people living in the Upper Mississippi Basin. A lot of pressure on the water, a lot of use of the water, a lot of abuse of the water. And so that's kind of what we're trying to focus on here.
So what are the particular threats to this watershed area?
We, there's a lot. There's, you know, with 30 million people, there's so many people that take water out, use it, and then put it back. And so we have wastewater going in. We need to have clean water coming out. The riparian areas along the river, you know, if you look at pictures of the river further south, it's not just a small channel. It's a big, wide, 50-mile floodplain with backwaters and lots of wildlife. There's, I think, 18 national refuges between the headwaters and in St. Louis. And so that's critical habitat for all the birds that migrate up. It's critical habitat for fish. There are issues with invasive species and all kinds of things. So there's lots of stuff that, as we negotiate this interface between people and nature, the river is where it happens. And a lot of the problems that we have come from the pollution that we're putting into the river. So that's a big area.
So what are some of the projects that you're undertaking or would like to undertake?
Well, we've got started. We have an action committee for our group that is chaired by Lonnie McCauley from Minnesota and Tam Prentisil from Iowa. And what we're doing is we're identifying actions to take in each state. We're going to be working through League of Women Voters Minnesota on some action issues in Minnesota this year. And we're starting similar efforts in other states, in our other 3 states. We have a large group that's very active in the Galena, Illinois area. Galena is in the upper northwest bit of Illinois.
Okay.
And it's actually a place where human activity changed the river. This is kind of interesting. The river flowed through Galena. The Mississippi actually went through Galena. It was a lead mining, that's why it's called Galena. And Ulysses S. Grant was there when it was a big lead mining area, so it's been a while. But so much silt came in from erosion of the farmlands that during a flood it actually changed the course of the river, and Dubuque got blessed with the river and Galena's got the marshy mess left.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so, but our group in Galena is very active, and they were actually the foremothers of our organization and helped to get it started, so we're following them for examples too. Very gifted people down there.
Now, I know nutrient pollution can be a huge issue in rivers. Can you tell me how it's affecting the Mississippi
You betcha.
in particular?
Yeah, so nutrients is kind of a funny thing to talk about because we take nutritional supplements. We always have to make sure we have enough nutrients. But the problem is you get too much nutrients and you have issues as people and as rivers. And so what's happening as these nutrients, fertilizers, human waste, animal waste, plant waste, all those things get into the water, there's too much food available, too much algae grows, and then with that super growth of algae, you have some bad algae. I know every summer now here in Minnesota we're hearing about blue-green algae issues, warnings to not let your dog in the water. You know, don't go in these blue-green algae areas. So anytime you have that hyper growth of algae, you have the issues that come from the algae itself and how that changes the light penetration and everything else in your water. But it also, those little algae cells die. And when they die, their decomposition uses up oxygen. And so then you have large areas of not enough oxygen to support fish. So we'll see fish kills up here, but we'll also, in the Gulf of Mexico, there's a dead zone that's like the size of Connecticut right now. And this is where the water comes down the Mississippi into the Gulf, and it just uses up all the oxygen, and it's dead. So we call that the Gulf Dead Zone. And that's one of the things that we wanted to organize around, was to work on our share of that problem. And our share is big up here.
So what are some of the solutions? What are we going to be able to do about it?
Well, what we need to do is cut down the amount of nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus, that are getting into the river. And we can do that by controlling human waste, you know, making sure that our water treatment plants are good. We can do that by making sure that people have good septic systems that aren't connected to it, and that the human waste isn't getting into water bodies. That's been a problem in the past, and it's been working well in Minnesota to work on that, so hopefully we can. We also were working with homeowners. There's a lot you can do with your lawn here. You don't need to fertilize it all the time. If you do fertilize, make sure you sweep it off the sidewalk so it stays where it needs to be. But really, fertilizing once a year instead of 4 times is fine. Letting your lawn get longer so you don't have to irrigate it so much. Longer grass means deeper roots and less irrigation. So there's just simple things you can do at home that actually save you money and time. So why not do them? And so as homeowners, there's things we can do. As city dwellers, there's things we can do. And then agriculture is a big issue here. Minnesota, as an agricultural state, has lots and lots of farms.
Yes, we do.
The governor, with his water initiative, is working on buffer strips. Buffer strips is one thing you can do that stops the erosion of soil, and it actually cuts down on the amount of phosphorus. A lot of there's the 2 nutrients that we worry about are nitrogen and phosphorus.
Okay.
And phosphorus largely comes with soil particles. And so when you have erosion, that's when you're going to get your phosphorus in. Nitrogen in the form of nitrate is what's acceptable or what's used by plants. Nitrogen, our air is nitrogen, right? And so there's nitrogen everywhere. And when you talk about too much nitrogen, people go, well, okay, how can that be? Yeah, but it's actually when it gets converted by plants or lightning into nitrate or fertilizer plants. Fertilizer factories make it into nitrate too. It's the nitrate that's mobile. And so dealing with nitrate is going to be a lot harder. About 70% of the nitrate that we see coming in is coming from farm fields right now, and that's because of drain tiles and things like that. So we're going to need to do more with that. I think that the governor recognizes that. There's a nutrient strategy for each of our 4 states, and our organization is working with those states, and we're trying to educate people, and I can talk more about educational things we've got going on, and to advocate for more money for farmers. If they're going to be making these changes, how are we going to support them? If they're growing less corn, what do we do to support them otherwise? So those are the kinds of things that I think we need to be looking at, and we can talk more about that.
Well, what are the educational things you were just mentioning?
Oh, we've got a lot going on right now. It's really fun. One of the things that we're doing here in Minnesota is just kind of doing a league by league. So any area that wants to have us as a speaker will come and we'll talk. And that's a lot of fun for us, and we meet good people, and we kind of start little efforts here and there. I talked about the group in Galena, and what they're fostering is a partnership with Rotary clubs.
Oh.
Because there's Rotaries everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah,
Everywhere.
and a lot of cities will have a couple Rotaries. And so the Rotary district that covers us is partnering with us. They're going to have a conference in January focusing on the Galena area, where they're going to bring in a national speaker to talk about the health of the rivers, some people from the state of Illinois to talk about what the Illinois nutrient management plan is all about, and then to focus on their specific watershed and how we're going to implement change here. And then with that partnership with Rotary, you'll have a lot more education that's happened and more people to shoulder the burden of making change.
And spread the word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's our education plan. And what we'd like to do is to take then that model of Rotary League cooperation from Galena and start to have, maybe the next conference would be in Wisconsin. We have a very active group in the La Crosse area.
Okay.
And so maybe we'd do something there and
Right.
have our next conference there.
Now, if people want more information, do you have information on a website that
We
people
do.
can go to?
Yeah, if they do lwvumrr.org, you'll find us.
Say that again?
lwvumrr.org.
Okay, and that will get them to your website.
Yeah.
And you have some of these things that people can do and a wealth of information
We
on there
do.
that they can access and learn more about it.
Yep, yeah, we have a blog page, so we
Oh,
put
okay.
current things up there. I'm just
Okay.
writing one right now. Did you know that the city of Des Moines is suing counties north of them?
I had heard about
Yes,
that.
because there's so much nutrients in the river, the Raccoon River, that they had to add boku buck treatment for their water.
It's going to cost cities a lot of money if they have to
well,
clean up the
it is
nutrients.
costing
Yeah,
cities a lot of
yeah.
money because they
Yeah.
do have to do that treatment. And so it's very important that that happens. And so I'm writing a blog post on that.
Okay.
So
All right.
we're trying to have enough current information there that it's interesting to go to, and
Good.
that we're covering topical things that happen in our watershed.
Is there anything else at all you'd like to add?
I think that we would welcome people to get involved in this issue. And so they can contact us through our website.
Okay.
They can contact us through local leagues that
Okay.
are part of it. We'd love to have local leagues starting to do partnerships with other groups too. There's lots
Yes.
of groups out there.
Yes. Oh, yes. And there are a lot of groups working on water issues, all kinds of groups. So it's
yeah, one of the
encouraging.
things when we started this, people said, "Oh, do we need another group doing this?" And really, I think that what we need is everybody doing it.
Yes.
And we're just another way that everybody's getting involved.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Gretchen. Thank you for taking the time to be here today and talking about this really, really important issue.
Well, thank you, Kay.
In our land of 10,000 lakes, we have water all around us. It makes it easy to take water for granted, but as you've heard, our water isn't as clean as we would like it to be. Science can tell us what's causing some of the problems, but the solutions can be controversial, complicated, and expensive. The hardest part may be getting enough of us to pay attention before we have a water crisis. If we want clean water, it's really up to all of us, and there are things we can do now. We can learn about the facts, about the challenges to clean water, and pay attention to the news and read more about it. We can change some of our everyday habits and use water efficiently. We can all call our right and urge our elected officials to support policies that protect and preserve our water. We can ask our cities what they're doing about water in our cities. You can find out more about what you, your family, and community can do by going to the governor's website. Go to mn.gov/governor and click on Year of Water Action in the menu on the right. LWV South Tonka serves the cities of Deep Haven, Excelsior, Greenwood, Tonka Bay, Shorewood, and Woodland. We're nonpartisan, so we don't support political parties or candidates, but we too study issues and lobby on our positions. We welcome both men and women to the organization and invite you to join us. To learn more about our league, go to our website, lwvsouthtonka.org. I'd like to thank the Lake Minnetonka Communications Commission for the opportunity to present this program. And I'll leave you with this thought. Every time we turn on the faucet to get a drink of water, it's important to remember how incredible it is that that water is clean. It's important to make sure that we do everything we can to preserve and protect our water resources, not just for us, but for our kids and grandkids. Thank you for watching.